Thanks for joining us. Excited to have you all here today, this evening, wherever you are.
5 o'clock somewhere, you know. Got our wine of the week. It's an Italian wine, but we'll talk about that later. But so yeah, I mean, grab whatever you would like: wine, tea, water.
Yeah, and we're gonna jump right in today because it's kind of been past 2 weeks have been a little bit hectic, right?
It's been a roller coaster.
So we're going to do a quick little video today for you guys. I know we haven't been on in a minute. We've had a lot going on, I think, in our personal lives, right?
Clearly.
So I just got back from a retreat, and that was a lot of fun, and that was a good time, but it definitely took a lot of my energy, and I've been just going a lot. I've noticed working a lot, having a hard time slowing down.
But you helped a lot of people too on that retreat.
Yeah, but
she hosted the retreat.
Yeah, but I just think it felt like everything just happened all at once after nothing had been happening for a long time.
Yeah, that's the North Node in Aries, like we talked about in our last episode. Because Aries is a fire sign, it's a cardinal sign, so it's all about what is going on
with the energy.
It's all about initiation, and it's quick moving, quick initiation.
Well, I felt like I got jumped into some type of initiation, like one of those, like, you know, when you were like in like school and I never was in a fraternity, but I felt like I was being hazed by the universe.
Oh my God, that's literally
think
how
about
it feels.
How have you been feeling?
Yeah, I've definitely been feeling the same thing. The only difference is that mine's not like as sudden. I feel like I've been going through it. It's just intensifying and like getting
like a
quicker
build up.
and quicker. Yeah, and we can chalk that up to our charts because my North Node's in Capricorn, which is like a slow building layer.
Mine's in Gemini. It's
in Gemini is like a fast, multifaceted sign. So definitely makes a lot of sense. You know, I mean, so obviously this is going to impact everyone differently, but I'm sure that all of you have some experiences that you can relate where it's like, just, I don't know, it's almost as if like the pressures of life just keeps getting more demanding and more demanding.
Yes, and time's going by faster and faster, so
Yeah.
the demand is getting higher and higher.
It's like less, it's like almost like you have less time, there's not enough hours in a day. It's like you have less and less energy to yourself.
Yeah.
Things you want to do. So
I was feeling more energized for a while, and then it kind of like dissipated for a minute there. So I don't know if anybody else has been feeling that out there, or anyone else has been going through these same bits of roller coaster energy as we have. But we'd love to share in the comments, you know.
Yeah.
We always love to hear what's going on with you guys out there. If you're going through the same thing, it's nice when we can talk about this too, because I think sometimes when I go through things, I feel like I'm like crazy or losing my mind.
I know.
And then when I talk to Sarah, and she's like, no, that's the same thing I feel like I'm going through.
Yeah.
Not that I want someone else to have to go through that, but like it makes you feel like, okay, all right.
Like it's okay. Like you're not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, like I know some people probably might be thinking of like, it's like everyone's going through different things. How can you just chalk it all up to one aspect or what's going on in the sky? And it's like, yes and no. At the end of the day, we are all multidimensional beings here having a human experience. So spiritual beings having a human experience, not humans having a spiritual experience. Right. Well, actually it is, but you get what I'm trying to say. But it's like, you know, so what I'm trying to say with that is like everyone here, their lives look differently, things are playing out differently, but at the end of the day, it's still the same underlying energies. We're not alone. We're all really one divine consciousness. That's how I look at it.
And as you're talking about one divine consciousness, what we wanted to talk about today was this sense of belonging in that collective energy, that collective consciousness. Not only are we human beings going through our own experience, but I think too what we've been feeling is it's now being affected by everyone around us, like because Aquarius, you said, is the full moon.
Full moon. It's a super full moon too.
And it's all about the collective energy and humanitarian and how we fit within that. So I know a lot of that has been coming up for me, like where I fit with like collaborating with people.
And it's not necessarily how we fit. It's more of how do we reach that feeling of belonging, that feeling of community, because ultimately it starts within ourselves. And I know it's like the question might be like, well, how? I mean, if we're here to connect with others and be in community with others, why would it just be with myself? And that's because we are literally mirrors of each other. What we see here in our 3D reality is what's reflected on the inside. So if you're not healed, I mean, we're always going to be healing. So, you know, I don't want anyone to feel like, well, I'm just not healed enough, because that's not true. You can always be at a point where you can have community in your life if you're open to it.
Well, and going back to what you're saying about that experience is like, we're not meant to be alone in that. We've been taught from a society standpoint that we come in here alone. We're anything you can do, I can do better in America, right? And don't get me wrong, I love America. I'm all about America. But we are interdependent beings, which means we actually do, if you think about like cultures and stuff that have like tribes, that's actually how human beings were meant to be within society, is supported by one another, right? And if anyone hasn't seen it, there is a documentary called I Am, and it talks about that. The guy from Ace Ventura that did the Ace Ventura movie, that actually wrote it, he wrote this, and it's incredible. He talks about how we've been so conditioned to think we need to do everything alone, and like how interdependence is so important for survival. I mean, if you think about infants, like when the baby doesn't have that connection with the mom, those babies, like, they could die. So that says a lot about how important the collective connection is, the community element of things. So
yeah, 100%. And if you're one of those people who you feel like, you know, I've never been able to depend on anybody in my life, I do everything myself, I can't count on anyone, that's okay too. And you can still be open to this idea that we do need each other here on Earth. One way to look at it, like on a really, this kind of might sound like a really out there view, but I mean, it's the truth of the matter is, there were other people here before us, generations and generations before us. So think about like all the things that we have here today, like a glass to put our wine in, filming this video, I mean, tarot cards. I mean, somebody had to have invented it. Mm-hmm. So imagine like if you came on this earth and you didn't have anything at all, it's like, well, you can't do everything yourself. So I don't know. It sounds weird to think about, but that's how I look at it at the end of the day.
Well, that's true, right? And do you want to share what the card is? Because I'm already like taking a peek at it. And I'm like, how fitting for exactly where we're going with belonging, right?
It's a beautiful card. I want to say this. I'm usually one of those that like to let the cards fall out, but I don't know. They weren't coming out, so I cut them and then I just picked a random card and I flipped it over. And this is the card. It says Child of the Cosmos. So it's a really beautiful, colorful card. And it says the intelligence of the universe lies within you. And it literally just goes back to what we were just saying about like, it's not necessarily so much of how do we fit in, it's how do we feel that sense of belonging, how do we feel that sense of community. It doesn't have to be, 10, 20, dozens of people. A community could be a group of 3 people. I mean, it could just be, somewhere where you go, maybe like a run club, if you like to go running, or if you like to go golfing. I mean, that's community. Mm-hmm. We have to ask ourselves, well, what do we want to feel? What is community? Because community is not the same thing for everyone. I mean, like the core energetic feeling under it is the same.
Well, what gives you that aspect or element of community, it could be, what you're saying is, it could be different for each person, right? What brings you joy in that situation, and then what types of people do you want to be around? Do you want to be around a big group of people, or do you want to be around a small group of people? And this is something me and Sarah are going to talk a little bit about too with we have some questions today with belonging, and you might even hear how we feel like we belong in our communities, and it might be different. So
right, exactly, because you could be you could be someone who needs to be around people all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so you might have different types of communities that you like to be around, or you could be more like a loner type, and you're good on your own, but like maybe there's just like one event or one place you like to go to every week that makes you feel that you have that sense of community.
Yeah. And let's go back to this card for a second, because it says Child of the Cosmos, which to me right away when I saw it, I'm just thinking like we all come from one place, right? It's that energy that intertwines all of us, that interconnects all of us. I mean, that's what I see in that card. Yeah, it's a person standing alone in the card, but then there's all these little orbs of light around her or him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that is that energy that we all collectively share, which is so beautiful.
Right, exactly. It's just all manifested in appearances in different ways, and that's why appearances don't really matter. But anyway, how do we find belonging in ourselves and our spiritual journey? So I'll let you go first.
Ooh. So how do we find belonging in ourselves and our spiritual journey? Well, I like this one because I think my spiritual journey, that has been the biggest element of belonging, because I was very independent. Being a Capricorn, I'm sure, but I think I just grew up that way. Like, my parents taught me, like, you're supposed to do things on your own. You're supposed to, take care of things. You just suck it up and deal with it. And I think not that I enjoyed being around people. I always had groups of friends and stuff, but it wasn't until I got onto my, like, spiritual journey, and then really until I established a spiritual business, that I started to actually have some element of community that felt like I belonged, if that made sense. Or like the word, I know you said not fit, but in a way it felt for me like it was a puzzle and I kind of fit in there.
Like, it's almost like you made your place in the world.
Yeah.
So it's not as if you just fit in somewhere, but you made yourself fit in. I feel like that's what it's about.
And I think I was seeking that for a long time, and I didn't even realize it. Like, I think I thought I wanted to fit somewhere, but once I realized, like, the community that I have now, it was a sense of belonging. It was a sense of, wow, these people that I'm working with or that are coming to me are also what I need from them. It's like that, what you're saying, the reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And the people I was attracting into my community, not only was I teaching them things, but they were teaching me things. And I feel like that is a huge piece of belonging, is like when you can have people who you're learning from, but you're also giving them something. I don't know, that's like a huge...
No, that's amazing, because it's like you worked hard to create a life that is aligned with you, and by you just being yourself and sharing what you want to share and doing it from a place of enjoyment, and not just, because of the money or for whatever reason, you did it because you felt like it was right with you, you ended up attracting just that.
Yeah.
People that wanted the same thing.
And I think what you're saying, because you don't have to have like a spiritual business to feel belonging. Like that is something separate. That's something I always kind of had wanted that, and I think because Sagittarius myself node, right? But I don't think you have to have like a business to create that type of community to teach other people. I think we do it in everything we do, and we don't really realize it. But it's what you were saying, is like finding people that bring you joy or that are like-minded, and creating that sense of belonging within whatever you're doing. It can even people that I was telling someone the other day, like someone was saying they're in a job they don't like, right? And I was like, yeah, but in that job, you're teaching people so much about so many different things. You actually are meant to be there right now, because that is creating that sense of belonging for you and those other people in that job. Mm-hmm. So eventually one day you won't be there, but I think back
There's no accident.
Yeah, I think back to like going through my hard time with my boss of 14 years before I started my business. And even in that place, I look back and there was a sense of belonging there. It was just in a different way. Mm-hmm. So.
Right, yeah. That's really nice, because at the end of the day, it
goes
back to yourself.
And that was a toxic relationship. That was a toxic situation. So I didn't see it when I was in it, but now going back, I'm like, oh, there was a sense of belonging there, because it taught me things that I had wounds with my mom. So.
And that's the challenging part, is really finding those positive feelings and relief in those moments that we are undergoing challenge, and not just like one challenge, but like when you're in a challenging situation, like what you had mentioned, weren't you like, it was like 14 years like you had to endure until you ended up creating this life for yourself. But that's not for everybody. Everyone's journey is different. Like you said, not everyone is going to start a spiritual business. Everyone's path is different.
But I think the key thing is like the challenging piece that you said. It's like we look at challenges as like something that is like bad, and it's actually the biggest growing points for us, because that's when we're going to seek out the things we want, the belonging, the sense of spirituality, or whatever you're seeking. It doesn't even have to be that. It could be maybe you're seeking to make more money or to be more confident in yourself. But I think in those challenges, you see that, and that's when you actually want to go the distance to figure out where you do belong.
And it does make sense, because it doesn't even have to be big things like that. It could be something that, okay, now I'm gonna refer to this religious text, but I'm not religious, and I'm not explaining it in a religious way, but it's a good example, especially, and it's okay if you are religious, if you are Christian. This is just for some perspective of, even the Bible talks about, like, in so many words, I know I'm not quoting this verbatim, but like, if you want to be a patient person, if you feel like, oh, I have no patience, like I'm not a patient person, there's something in there that says something about like God will bring you trials and tribulations. And if you think about it, these like strong virtues like patience and grace and faith, these are not things that you just cultivate, like you just automatically, like you cultivate these things through challenges.
Right.
Now, when you're in it, it sucks, and it's like, well, screw that. Like, I don't want to go through this, but it's like, at the end of the day, if everything was all great, you wouldn't be the person that you are today.
Oh, and that's a good point. And I like to use the sports analogy because I've heard that from somebody, and I used it the other day with my client, and it's like sports we can all relate to, because if you're going to say you're a baseball player and you want to hit a home run, you don't just hit a home run. You have to endure training and failing and injury and suffering to your body sometimes even to get through sports, right? So like, you don't just get to go on the field and hit a home run. You don't just get to score the goal. It's like, it's practice. It's showing up every day, like we were talking about, consistently, and applying that into your life, whatever it is, whatever you're doing. And that comes with challenges and obstacles. Like even today, we didn't want to get on and do a video because it was like, I was like, okay, it's just been a long week and I just need a break, but this is the times when we should show up, because this is where we're going to get the most growth, and people out there are going to get the most insight from probably what we're doing too. Yeah,
and doing the counterintuitive thing, you can't create change without change, like we were literally just talking about earlier, you know?
Yeah.
And I also had another.
Well, and you can't create change without being consistent either.
Mm-hmm. And this is like this is good too that we're talking about this, because, you know, the internet these days, like as we become more technologically advanced and more connecting over the internet and social media and spiritual communities and teachers, everyone's a spiritual teacher these days. And, you know, that's fine, but we have to be careful with that too, because see, a lot of it is glamorized, and I've been a victim of this too, of like falling for, of like, wow, well, this person's doing this, and it's like they did this in 2 months, and they're making 6-figure days, and it's like, at the end of the day, nothing just comes immediate like that. And if it does, like if someone, let's say someone won the lotto, or someone just got blessed one day and they got hit with a lot of money, and they didn't have to work hard for what they had, chances are it doesn't last.
Well, and those are the people that blow all the money and they don't even end up having any anyway.
Exactly, because for someone who went through challenges and trials and tribulations, you're gonna have an appreciation for that, right? Yes, and you better believe that once they get there and achieve their goal, they're gonna keep it, because they went through so much that they've already cultivated a lot of virtues through going through those challenges, like patience, discipline, hard work. It's like you can't just get the money and then it's just like, all right, well, I'm not gonna do anything and I'm just gonna blow it. I mean, unless you're like, you know, older and it's time for retirement, and, you know, and then by all means, then, you know, I wish I was you, but but yeah, you know, I mean,
well, even then, I always say in retirement is like, we always plan for that, but it's like, why aren't we living our lives that way now? Like, why do we wait? I mean, you don't know if you're going to make it till tomorrow.
It all starts with you at the end of the day. Like that, through if you took anything away from what we just said, literally the underlying energy is that it starts with you. It's literally about your perception, your mindset, and really in those moments of like not feeling like doing anything, or you don't want to get out of bed, or whatever the case may be. And we all have them, and we're going to keep having them as long as we're humans on this earth. It's just a matter of, what do you do in that moment? If you feel like you absolutely need rest, then you listen to your body. But if you feel like, you know, oh, it's just another day, I'm just dreading it, those are some things that you want to bring extra conscious attention to, of, well, maybe I should show up today. Like, what will happen if I just show up today?
Well, and like you're saying, what would happen if I just show up today? It's just facing that challenge head on and doing it anyway. And it might only be 20%, but you at least did it. That's what matters. And then maybe the next day it gets a little better. And sometimes we fall back, and that's okay too. I think that's the thing, is like, social media has glamorized things, that it has to be a certain way, but really the people that I feel like the people that succeed are the ones that have failed. And I think Sylvester Stallone has a quote about this, is how many times you get hit and you keep getting back up, like a fighter. How many times they get hit and they keep getting back up, and that is where you learn.
That's what
where
counts.
You grow. Yeah.
The failure is not what counts. It's like, what do you do about it? How do you respond to it moving forward?
So how do you...
Oh yeah, I forgot I had...
Yeah, you got to answer this question.
There's good dialogue going. So how do we find belonging in ourselves and on our spiritual journey? I find belonging it's really, well, like I said, it starts in myself. I honestly feel like I belong when I'm sharing with others. Like, whether it be experiences, just life, what we're doing, I checked this up to my, like, the 5 love languages. So what is it? Quality time, words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch.
Yep.
And my number 1 is quality time. I'm a Leo. And so Leo is also a very expressive sign, so I'm bringing some of the astrology into it. It's the sign of self-expression. It's ruled by the sun. And so when I find that I'm expressing myself and just connecting with my friends and my community, I feel like I belong. Because at the end of the day, like, when people share their experiences and they express their true authentic self, it automatically inspires and like catalyzes everyone else to do the same. And it's just this nice healing space, because a lot of people too, like, obviously everyone's different. Some people don't feel comfortable like immediately just being very expressive. Some people are just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna be off to the sidelines and be observant, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like everything is energy, and it has to come out in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like you can really, if you're listening to this, especially on the spiritual journey, we need others. It goes back to community. We need to share these experiences with others, so that it even goes back to what you were saying. So it's like, sometimes we can feel like, is there something wrong with me? Or like, am I the only one going through this? Like, what the hell is happening? But when we share these experiences, chances are, because I've seen it time and time again, people are like, oh my God, no, I feel that way too. Like, their journey could be completely different than what someone else is going through. Like, literally, it looks completely different, but it's literally the same energy under it. And they're like, I'm going through that too. And I just think that creates a lot of belonging, because it just shows that we're all one, we're all connected.
Well, it reminds us we're never alone. We're always connected to each other, to something bigger, source, greater. The card that you pulled today, the Child of the Cosmos, I feel like it's a it's so beautiful, this full moon, because of that, because it's like reminding us that we do belong. We belong here, and whatever your sense of belonging is valid, and it should be important in this moment, because we need more of that in this world. I think we've lost so much of belonging, because now we're all following the same thing, or we're all doing the same thing, and that's what keeps us, I don't know, that keeps us kind of, I almost feel like separate when we're all doing the same thing, even though that kind of sounds weird.
No,
but like,
does.
when everyone's doing the same thing, now we have become so separated, where when everyone's just uniquely themselves, there is this sense of like connection. I don't know.
No, I think it's true. Because if we were all doing the same thing, chances are everybody would be feeling miserable, and then you're not in touch with your authentic self.
Well, and I had someone tell me this one time too. It was interesting. It was like, I remember this so well. Is like, think about masculine and feminine, male, female, whatever. I mean, I know some people might get a little bothered by that, because we have gender roles nowadays, but I'm not going to go into that too much. But masculine, feminine, let's go there, because everybody has that energy in them, whether they are male or female, and that is an important role, okay? Because, like, say for example that one day I am having more of a masculine energy, right? And Sarah's carrying more of a feminine energy. That actually is going to play a role. So if I'm carrying a lot of masculine and she brings more feminine, it's going to counter-activate my masculine, and it's going to balance the engagement that we're having, which is important, because it's going to bring more of that yin and yang. So these things like masculine and feminine energy are really important to create belonging within our experience together. And people forget that, is like that role also adds, so that you don't have to take on, maybe one day you're not as feminine, maybe one day you're going through more of like this controlled energy, and that other person's having more of an emotional experience, and when you have each other, it brings more support in different ways. So I think
creating that balance within yourself.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I'll just say a masculine it's not masculine, it's more of an outward energy. It represents action, whereas feminine is more of a receptive energy. It's a softer, it's a creative energy. And so obviously that includes emotion as well, which I know there's like, a lot of collective wounding with men particularly who grew up where it was like, no, you don't cry, you don't show your emotions, you have to be strong,
Right.
So I know there's that too, that kind of distorts the truth of how the universe really works with when it comes to masculine and feminine energy. So we have to just balance that inside of ourselves. We can't be taking action and doing things outwardly 24/7. I mean, we burn out. There has to be a balance with receptive energy and getting in touch with our emotions. Now, this is why the world of appearances can be very damaging and distort the truth of reality, because it's only natural as human beings. We're here in a physical earth. It's almost second nature to chalk it up to the world of appearances, but that's also another practice that can help us if we just scale that back of like, well, what does masculine look like? What does feminine, what does being emotional look like? It doesn't always mean sitting there crying in front of everybody. It can be, but it can also just mean being vulnerable and just like holding space for someone, so that's why the world of appearances, I'm kind of like, let's kind of like soften that up a little bit and just be more open to what really is energetically,
Right.
and not just defaulting to, well, my perception is like, this is what it looks like. Now, a lot of that is unconscious too, I'll say
Right.
that. And you're a hypnotherapist, so
subconscious,
it's something that you
programming.
definitely know a lot about too.
Yeah, subconscious programming. So.
So, all right, so the next question, how do we find belonging in our quirks or things that we think are problematic or things that we have shame around?
So I think some of the things that I've noticed that I've kind of gone through is some stuff with like people pleasing and boundaries, and those are definitely some of the things I'm very judgmental on myself for. Even I notice, like, if I go to get into some type of situation where I have to assert my boundaries, I tend to worry about how the other person's going to feel. So in that, I've learned, though, that, and we were talking about this the other day, is like, I've learned that, okay, yeah, people-pleasing and boundaries, right? Sometimes if you're not having boundaries, sometimes if you're people-pleasing, it can be a bad thing. But then again, people-pleasing is also not the worst thing, because in certain cases where maybe there's a chaotic energy and someone needs to kind of stand in and kind of keep it calm, then people-pleasing can be good in that moment. And a probably better example would be if you're I said this to someone the other day, is like, someone said, oh, I'm so judgy. That was like their quirk or whatever they didn't like. I said, yeah, but part of your judgment is a good thing, because now if you've gone out into the streets and you have your kids with you and you need to judge whether a human being is safe for your kids to be around, that's like a good judgment, right? So I think with this question, it's like a lot of the things that we find fault within ourselves, or a lot of the things that we believe are like bad within ourselves, are actually things that are not always bad. It's just something we need to be aware of, so we can see how are we using these in a good way, and how are we hurting ourselves with this, and how are we shaming ourselves for these behaviors, and maybe how can we change them and know that part of them is a good thing, and part of them might be something we just need to look at and change the belief around.
It's almost like a spiritual bypass. It's almost like, well, you know what, I'm gonna think in all or nothing thinking, so that I don't have to really feel the fear or the shame around what the truth really is. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean,
Well, some
like,
of those things are hard, right? Because like when you feel like you're judging people or you're people pleasing and you're not setting boundaries, I think we do judge ourselves for that, or we look at it like, oh my God, I'm a terrible person because I can't get my boundaries in place. Because that's what we've been taught. We don't know any different. We don't know that it's just an emotional response or a belief that we're having from subconscious or the past, and there's a way to take it and say, hey, okay, great, boundaries, we need to have them, but also it's okay to sometimes sometimes not fully need those boundaries, because that's also going to create more space when you need other people to come in or other things to be more open. There's a balance in everything.
That's literally the underlying energy right there, is that we want to focus on and practice, because this is some deep spiritual work, and this is nothing that we can just snap the finger and do overnight. And so it's just a continuous practice of trying to be more aware and conscious of that balance. It's like, you know, we as human beings get so hard on ourselves. It's like, okay, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or I shouldn't do this because I'm judging this. And it's like, no, these traits and qualities are in you for a reason. So it's obviously they're meant to be there, but it's a matter of time and place. I use this phrase all the time. There's a time and place for everything, because I don't really believe in judging. Like, who are we to judge? Now, do I judge? Hell yeah. I mean, I'm a human being. Like, it's just something that we do.
Right.
Now, that is actually something, though, for me particularly, that I'm really conscious of, because I very, like, back in the day, I was very, very judgmental, and I didn't know I was. I didn't have the self-awareness, the capacity to even know how judgmental I was. But when after I had my spiritual awakening and I became a lot more aware of that, I started to literally it's like a muscle. Like, you have to consciously have the will and the desire in your spirit to want to catch your blind spots, you know?
Yeah.
So
what would your quirk be then? Is it that, what do you feel like are the things that you're shaming around?
How do we find belonging in our quirks, or things that we think are problematic, or things we have shame around? For me, mine is more, because with my spiritual journey and the things and the wounds that I went through growing up, I had a lot of shame. And so, you know, just going through the world trying to find my identity and feeling shame for who I am and for my quirks, and, you know, based on others' reactions and how they perceived, or how I even thought they perceived things when it wasn't even true. It wasn't easy, but what works for me particularly is just doing the thing anyway that feels right, no matter how scared you feel of how someone's gonna, oh my God, you're weird, or oh my God, like, why would she act that way, or say that, or do that, or whatever. Because at the end of the day, goes back to what I just said, who is anyone to judge? And if someone judges you for how you are and your personality or whatever quirk there is about you, then they're obviously not your person, and they obviously have their own insecurities.
They're judging themselves. Yeah,
exactly. They're projecting their judgment on themselves onto you, because they haven't owned what's within them. And so it really was something that I had to really practice, and just, you know what, like, I am an outspoken person. I am loud. I get crazy. I say things that people are thinking but won't say, and it's not always easy. But I realized every single time I overcame that fear and did it, I always got a positive reaction. Actually, way more than positive than I would have even imagined. And then I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this is what you call alignment. Being yourself. Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to suffer. Is it me just not going to be myself because I'm worried about what others think? And that might not even be true. Well, or am I going to be myself and feel fulfilled in myself and see people's true reactions of me because I'm being my true self? Because if I'm not being my true self, then I'm not getting true reactions.
Well, and what you said about suffering too, someone's going to suffer, but suffering's not a bad thing. Suffering's going to make you look at the things that you're doing and make the change. I mean, that's the only way we do make change as human beings, is we have to get to a place of being so uncomfortable, which usually suffering, right? And that might be a little harsh word, but it's true. We have to usually get to such a painful place that we want to change. Not all of us, but people,
most of the time. Because otherwise, if everything was great,
in all of our life, right? At some point.
Right, like if everything was all great, we had everything we wanted, we wouldn't want change.
Yeah.
Unless we got so bored out of our minds, but then there goes back to the suffering again.
Exactly. So you'd be bored out of your mind suffering. So maybe one more, because we're like at 35
minutes. Let's see. We had so many good questions. All right, let's pick the next one.
We can cut this out.
What do you want connection and community to look like or feel like?
Ooh.
I'll go first.
Go ahead, yeah.
So this is obviously going to look different for everyone, but you want to tap into the feeling, okay? Like, what do you yearn for? What do you wish for when you think about community? So for me, I think about, the first word that comes to mind that literally just dropped in is family, okay? I grew up in a very strict Christian Catholic household, and my mom is Venezuelan. My mom had me, she was 41. So, and my dad, he was 4 years younger than her. So my parents, I have older parents than, I'm about to be 32. So I have older parents, so they're very old fashioned. And anyway, you know, to them, family was just blood. And that's it. Like, you can't have strangers or friends that are considered family. But because I grew up in such a dysfunctional household, I never really felt the true essence of family. So I've just been out in the world making friends, meeting people, and I have literally created my own community. And they're not my blood family, but they are pretty much like family, where you can be yourself. You can count on them. If something happens, I don't even have to talk to a friend every single day, or I could go months or years without talking to them, but I have friends that I could call right now and say, hey, I'm going through this, I need you, and they would be there for me. And I feel like that's community, just people accepting you inside and out, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it doesn't matter what state you're in, they accept you and they love you authentically.
And I love what you said about that. Like, you said that you basically created that for yourself. Like, and I think that's what we came here to do, is like, I'm a huge believer that we picked our family, so we've kind of been assigned them based on what we've wanted. So same thing.
Soul contract.
Yeah, soul contract. So it's like, how do you get what you need? You have to be aware of that first. So exactly what Sarah's saying, I would just kind of piggyback off that, is what does it feel like for you to have community? And this is going to be so different for each person, because
oh my God, that's a theory. Literally, like, our soul signed contracts just to heal karma.
Right.
Like, not even, I mean, there are some families out there that you're born with and you're blessed and you have a good family.
Right.
You feel that belonging, but most often not.
Right. Because, again, you picked them because you wanted those people to challenge you. I mean, where does the most challenge come from? It's usually your family.
Especially Italians.
Yes, it's usually your family. And, well, because I just made my life challenging.
Yeah.
I always joke, I say that. I'm like, I wanted all the challenges. But I think because we do create soul contracts, and a lot of people I'll hear say to me, like clients, it's like, I always tell them, when you do the work, your family actually gets better. And I think people think that that's like not true, but I'm a huge believer in that ripple effect, is like, when you start to get clear on what you need from community, because remember, again, it's just a perspective, right? What community really is. Honestly, it's a perspective what family is. I mean,
sure.
Some people might take that wrong, but it is what your family is what you create, how you feel your family is. So based
on whatever belief systems and programs
and
you have too, because like my parents just look at it like, we're your blood, so we're your family,
right.
So you have to do this and you have to be in our lives in this particular way. It's like it's very limiting on what it looks like.
So when you kind of step away from that and you get more clarity on what you need from community or family, because I feel like community and family can kind of be, if you're calling it that, I don't mean like your own family, but to me, I feel like my community now is my family. Like, I feel like you're like a sister to me, or a family member, or the people I meet, it's like I've known them. So what do you feel that is to you? And I think for me, community feels like support, safety, a sense of belonging, and like-minded people where I can talk about this kind of stuff, because not everybody out there wants to talk about this kind of stuff. They're not there, and maybe they won't be in this lifetime, and that's okay. But how do you find that in other people? And the only way you're going to find it in other people is finding it in yourself first, and then you can go out and say, okay, now I'm in a line with myself. So you actually just attract those people. It's not that you're actually finding them, you're just attracting them. So,
and I feel like that's why the ripple effect is a real thing, and I've experienced it myself, where I thought my old-fashioned parents, who would never change, older people when they're set in their ways, by me doing my own healing, I've seen changes. It might not be huge, but
they
very
do.
Small. I've seen it, and in ways they're small, but in ways that I'm like blown away, because I'm like, I never thought that she would react in this way if I told her this, or whatever the case may be. And that's why the ripple effect is a real thing too, because there's over 8 billion people on this earth. yes, we were meant to connect with each other, but I mean, we weren't meant to meet every single of the 8 billion people. So I mean, that's why you've got your own tribes. And when you heal yourselves, because we are connected, it ripples out into the world.
And you call those people in, I believe, like when you call in community, you're calling in those people to actually help heal you, and you're healing them. So it's like, that's how the ripple effect really starts to take place. And then it can go on generationally, and you're actually healing your past too, which is amazing. And that past line, that generational line.
I feel like that's I think that's because we talked about that too in the breathwork ceremony. I think that's actually how that works, where like if you're one of those people thinking like, oh, my parents are never going to change, I think that's the real way of how it works, is that when you heal yourself, you actually are healing your past,
because you're
those
healing your
wounds
DNA, and they have actual science behind that, epigenetics. So it's like, if they have science, like, okay, if we can heal our DNA, then you're sending that back.
Yeah.
And you're sending it forward.
Because it goes back like many generations.
Right. Which is crazy. So should we pull?
Yeah, so we're going to pull one final card. We had the Oracle deck in the beginning. So we had the Child of the Cosmos, the intelligence of the universe is within you. And we have, what's the name of this deck? They're shaped like hearts.
Oh, they're so beautiful. This is the Lovers Oracle, but why I love them is it could be for partnerships, but it's really more for self, I feel like, because you'll see we're gonna get one. Yeah, it's just, I mean, these cards are shaped like hearts. It's like the messages on these cards are very they're very, it's like I feel like self-nurturing, self-nurturing. That's the best way to put it, right? So even if, I mean, this might apply to a partnership, but it can also apply to yourself. It could apply to family. It's like words of nourishment. No, don't get it confused with words of affirmation. It's like literally almost like a mother like telling you like, hey, this is what you need right now, and it's like So there's a lot going on with these shuffling things today, but I'm gonna say right now, twice I've seen look inside yourself in reflection, and this card came out. Oh my god, and it matches like this too. This card came out a couple times because I kept shuffling, and I wanted to make sure because we had like 3 falling. But so it says, criticizing one another will only lead to further unhappiness. Love and accept each other as you are, and your relationship will magically transform. And this is what we were just talking about with family. It could be in a partnership. A lot with relationships, you said, big penis. And this is actually a big theme, too, that I've been going through personally, of just communication has been a big theme for me, but just, being mindful of how you're communicating with people too, and how you're coming off with people, regardless, like if you don't mean something to come from a bad place, but just maybe making that extra effort to be conscious of, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Well, and when you're criticizing someone else, you're really criticizing yourself. It's true. And I think I tend to see that sometimes, even when I argue with my partner or with my family, is like, I'm always like, oh wow, step back, because especially with my mom, I'm like, oh my god, you are her. Even in the things I find, it's like you can see that in yourself, in your partnerships, in your friendships. So be careful who you criticize, because you're really you're criticizing yourself. Yeah, and it's like, and really, like, ask yourself, like, is it that you're really trying to help someone? Is there some, or is it just you're projecting because you're upset about something, or whatever the case may be? So, obviously, it's a practice, and and it doesn't mean we're not going to criticize people, but I always say is like, if you're having a hard time with a family member or partner, say like, what is this trying to show me or teach me about myself? Because it always goes back to us. Everything's always aligning for us. The stars are aligning. It's happening for us, not to us. It's happening for us. I have to remind myself of that one. It slips out sometimes, but so it's not easy times that we live in. So. Look inside. I mean, I feel like this is a little bit of an emotional one this week. Yeah, this moon it's gonna be a little bit of a emotional one, but it's gonna hit us because it's happening in Aquarius. And Aquarius, the modern ruler is Uranus, and so Uranus is like the shocking planet, like an electric. I keep saying Leo because I think I want to bypass it and just go right to the inner child. Well, fun stuff. It's opposite of Leo. I'm like, let's get to Leo. I know. Aren't we having a Leo new moon, right? Oh yeah, thank God. No offense, Nixie. Nixie's an Aquarius.
Yep.
No offense to any Aquariuses
and-
out there.
And her sister's a Leo. They're laying on the couch right now.
They're passed out.
But yeah, so I mean, just love yourself. Have some self-reflection of what is it that you yearn for? What does community mean to you? What does belonging mean to you? What's stopping you from feeling belonging? Like, and at the snap of a finger, we have none other than.
No, I'm just gonna say yourself to make it so we can end it.
Okay.
And then you're gonna say it on that note. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. Yourself.
And on that note, oh man. Okay, and on that note, thank you guys so much for joining us. If you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe. Make sure you turn on that, whatever that little bell is, so you get the notifications. I don't know. You know what to do. Make sure you comment, because obviously that's how you find community. If you have any questions on other types of topics you'd like us to talk about, or just anything you'd like to share, just feel free to comment and share with whoever you feel may need this video. We love you all.